Hello and welcome to our webinar, Next Level Player Engagement, Powering Customer Support Using AI. My name is Vanessa and today we'll be discussing a few thoughts on how you can improve your customer experience and increase your bottom line by leveraging the most recent technologies in AI. So with me today I've got Jeje, the CEO of EBO.
Hi Vanessa, it's great to be here.
And also John, the COO of EBO.
Thanks for the introduction. I'm pleased to be showing you some of the capabilities of the virtual agent today.
Thanks, John. Okay, so before continuing, I would just like to say that if you've got any questions, please just pop them into the live chat and we'll try to answer them as we go along. Okay, so I think it's worth introducing both companies just very briefly. BMIT Technologies is known in the iGaming space primarily as a data center company because that's in fact the way that we started out. But over the years, we've branched out into different industries, different areas of technology, including security, technical compliance. And our partnership with EBO sees us branching out into yet another one of our less traditional spaces, but certainly one of our more exciting spaces. Jeje, would you like to actually introduce the company?
For sure, Van. So I think we're witnessing three global trends which are really shaping technology and which are really shaping operations. I think the first trend is around customer engagement. Companies today are looking for ways to relate to customers in a new way, a way that is efficient, a way that is smart. And that maybe brings us to the second concept and trend, which is the trend of automation. Gone are the days where every single process has to be managed by a human. We're at a stage whereby through computer science, specifically through artificial intelligence, we could automate entire workflows in a way which just wasn't possible 5 or even 6 years ago. And the third emerging trend, which has really shaped EBO into its role, is this idea of the centricity of data. I'm sure you agree that the competitive differentiation between a company and another today really depends on its ability to capture data, but not merely store it, but bring that data to the front line, make it actionable. And this is what AI allows us to do. It allows us to look at a lake of data, bring it into a conversation and make it actionable. So these three trends really formed EBO. But our really important step in this industry, Van, was having a home in BMIT. So our partnership with BMIT, which eventually also bought a stake in the company, led us to really think about what new training models are necessary in the iGaming sector. And with its captive audience in this industry, BMIT gave us a really clear insight into the specific pain points and requirements of the industry. So when you marry together the idea of, use case understanding, machine learning, and these three trends, you realize that the relationship between the two organizations has brought us at the right place, at the right time, to really bring benefit to the iGaming industry.
Yes, okay, thank you for that. And actually, speaking of how timely it is, we know from our 20-year plus engagement with the industry that it's constantly growing, both in terms of profitability and customer base. Competition keeps getting stiffer, especially post-pandemic, where customers and players are moving from a land-based experience to an online or remote gaming experience. So in order to enjoy success, to even be competitive, we know that operators need to go above and beyond to attract and engage and actually ultimately retain their customers. So what we were hearing over and over again is, how do we automate our customer support without losing that personal touch? So I think it's probably time to meet our virtual agents.
Deploying chatbots in your customer support might sound like a great idea. But why settle for something basic when you can opt for a solution that is clearly superior? Meet CX Virtual Agent from BMIT Technologies. CX Virtual Agent is not a chatbot. It is the future of conversational AI technology offered by BMIT Technologies. It will help you reduce churn, improve your service, and change those bottom line numbers for the better. Being intelligent, CX Virtual Agent understands emotions, interacts in any language, and handles a vast range of requests. helping you build valuable, long-lasting relationships with your customers. How, you ask? Together, we will define how we want the CX virtual agent to behave and then build a unique engine to understand your customers, offering a personalized experience unlike any other. Anytime, anywhere, night or day. We are a trusted technology partner for a wide range of clients across the online gaming, financial services, and other segments. We can truly transform your engagement with customers. Say hello to BMIT Technologies CX Virtual Agent. The future of customer experience.
Okay, so now that you've been introduced, let's explore some of the ways in which a virtual agent solution can automate brand support, even where there are multiple brands, and how the solution goes further than first-line support, taking player engagement to the next level, enhancing user experience, contributing to retention, boosting acquisition, and ultimately giving you that competitive edge that you constantly talk about. So, to start off with a question, perhaps, what, in your opinion, is the single most immediate benefit of having an AI-backed virtual agent solution, perhaps specifically within the gaming industry?
Right. I think, Vanessa, most good answers come in fours. So I'll give you more than one answer, right? I'll just focus on the 4 benefits which we see manifested in this industry time and time again. I think the first one is speed. You'll all agree that we now live in this world where instant gratification is critical. There is no time to wait for an answer. There is no time to wait for a human agent to get to you in a queue, which might take 8, 12 minutes. There is no time for a long workflow to pan out. We need things to be speedy. And speed means that AI needs to instantly assist the player's requirements, having a 0 wait time and a 0 resolution time goal. And this is a first benefit which we bring to the industry, which massively changes its ability to perform. The second relates to consistency. I'm sure, Vanessa, you've been on the player side seeing sometimes agents handle requirements which is not in a way that seems consistent with the values, brand, tone of voice that you would expect. Well, the truth is human agents get tired after a day's work. They're fatigued after listening to repetitive questions. So what AI does, what this solution does specifically for you, is that it brings a consistent approach to engaging with the player. And that consistency is critical in a world whereby compliance typically expects consistent behavior in service. And bringing, therefore, consistency into the game also means higher regulatory compliance. The third key benefit, which we should talk about, is personalization. Vanessa, you mentioned that players want to be seen for who they are, with their needs, their specificities. So personalization means that AI and the virtual agent which is placed in your portal can actually understand all the data scenario of a player and immediately capture that into a conversation. So they know the transaction history. The virtual agent can understand previous questions that you've asked, maybe AML or KYC procedures that have failed, and as a result have a personalized, informed discussion with the individual player. But maybe the fourth and most important area we should be speaking about over here is this idea of automation. This is the big idea of our time, Vanessa, right? And we could speak about a really important anchor customer, Stanleybet, which you probably all have heard about and what this has meant for them. But automation basically means 2 clear things. How can you lower the cost of your operation, and how can you scale your service and engagement capabilities by having a new virtual member in your team?
Called her Claire, not the VA, or because in my point of view, Claire should not only stood up to the player, but integrate in the team. Actually, what I like to Claire when she was presented to us is because she can be a valuable member in the team by, for example, dealing with the higher number of the customer contacting us in the same time. For example, without me scheduling the resource, so dealing with the customer in the same way, for them not making them feel the waiting time so bad. So at this point, I liked her for this, but also for the repetitive queries. So for example, she knows how to identify the customer and picking up the questions for the customers. If she doesn't know how to answer, she will transfer the chat to the agent, and the human agent, her colleague, her human colleague, okay, and they will deal with it in order to fix the issue or to give the information to the customer in the best way they can, but without losing the time of the beginning, dealing with the repetitive queries.
Okay, so now that Dalia spoke about what it's like to have a virtual agent in your team, let's really shift the focus back to the player, right? Because that's what it's all about, Vanessa. What does the player experience look like of dealing with a virtual agent? Well, probably here too there are 4 key points to mention, Van. The first is, this is a multi-language, multi-channel experience. So the virtual agent can interact in over 100 languages and across multiple channels. So it might be the web portal, it might be a social media messaging channel. In other words, this idea of omni-channel continuity. Wherever you are, we see you, and we're there to have a conversation with you. The second part of the experience is speed, right? When you remove the lag of waiting time, you change the experience, because the whole instant experience makes a very engaging and compelling offering. The third one is simplicity, right? So how can you offer a conversation which is based on best practices that is simple? It's simple to understand, it has the nuances of the culture and the tone of the brand, and it just works because it is modeled on millions of previous conversations that have been rated to work. And the fourth element of the player experience is this data-rich environment. You're now speaking to a virtual agent which understands the whole ecosystem of the game. It understands your transactions, it understands your needs, it can read your sentiment through sentiment analysis algorithms, and so can really shape through data the experience that the player has. So with this in mind, Vanessa, I think we should really focus on not just a virtual agent which is offering customer service, but here we're talking about a key competitive advantage,
Absolutely.
a key strategic tool which we could bring to organizations. What attracted you to work in this segment?
Absolutely. Actually, that is specifically, and you've hit the nail on the head there, what attracted me to work with the virtual agent solution, because it goes so much far beyond the mere sort of fire extinguishing purpose of a customer support team, and it's a valuable and proactive contributor to driving revenue, to boosting player acquisition, to increasing loyalty, and I think that's it's specifically it, because from what we hear from operators, it's not only an exceptional online gambling experience that they want to offer their customers, but it's, as the title of the webinar suggests, it's next level player engagement. So JJ, you've spoken quite a lot about the player experience, but I think it's really time to sort of delve into the solution itself, and maybe we can pass over to John, who will take us through some of the more interesting features from a customer experience.
When we're introducing the virtual agent, it is key for us to begin by highlighting the fact that this is not about deploying a product. It's about deploying a product plus a service and making sure that we create a virtual agent which is fully aligned to what the business needs. So this is one of the major differentiating factors, the fact that we have a service layer that we apply and we're constantly improving the virtual agent as we go. The company then ends up with a virtual agent which suits the specific business needs and the ongoing changes that business goes through. If I go through the elements of the solution, the first one to describe is basically the platform, what we call the platform. The platform is the central part of what we've developed, and it's the capability of developing human-like conversations within a virtual agent. In addition to that, we've developed a number of integration hooks and a method of integrating. Now, how we integrate, we've developed a number of integration hooks. This is key to make sure that the virtual agent is always aware of the latest elements of information that could be available from within your internal systems. And we can integrate with the various CRMs and other ticketing platforms, etc. We also actually have created a number of industry-specific training models. And these are key in order to make sure that A, we are already aware of the flows, your business processes, etc. And we can quickly map to what you need. And we also have training data and AI training models available to mean that we can actually hit a really high recognition rate, that is the capability of the virtual agent to understand, from the first week. And this is also something key that we bring to the sale. As far as language capabilities go, we can actually provide access to over 100 languages. Over here it says 80, it's actually over 100. Any language which is heavily used on the internet has a strong, what's called natural language processing engine available. Finally, what we also provide is the service layer. And this is the continual improvement, attachment to the SLA, attachment to the strategic objectives of the company, and making sure that that virtual agent remains relevant to the business on an ongoing basis. This is a partnership that we established right from the get-go. And we try and make sure that the virtual agent will always be supporting the business in the most current goals. When it comes to the front end, we can work on almost any channel. The obvious ones obviously are your web chat on your website. That could be in multiple languages. It could be different depending on the pages there are. But we also support Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and many other platforms such as Telegram as well. This is key to make sure that we can move to where either your clients already are or where you want to establish a base and a communication platform with them. And we would obviously work with you in order to generate that uptake of clients. When it comes to the use cases, and I'm going to show a quick demo next, within gaming, we've now established a significant number of use cases which out of the box will provide a good template to start to develop the use cases for your specific organization. So this is everything to do with bonuses, everything to do with deposits. There are elements of responsible gaming already built in, about opening accounts, the eligibility from one country to another. These are all elements that we have already developed. We can grab those templated use cases, work with your teams, and it's a really good starting point in order to end up with a very specific use case which matches how your operation wants to work. I'm now going to take you through a quick demo of an example of the kind of conversations which a virtual agent is capable with. This actual demo shows an element of integration with the website. Okay, so we've just spun up an example gaming company. Over here it said, "Hi John, good morning, great to see you." It's integrated with the website, so it means that it knows who the individual is. They have a profile, they're logged in. The question is, how do I verify my account? Our conversation design team will actually split that into two. It could be, I need to verify account, or you may be having verification issues. Once we've established that, we would then provide them with the appropriate link from where they can actually verify their account. Conversation design again suggests that we should ask them if they need to know which documents they need to submit. We then provide all these various options available in the form of a carousel. It's a really easy way of providing a lot of information in a very simple form, and provides the clients with an easy way of selecting the information that they need. In this case, we've selected proof of payment, and we have selected credit card as the payment method that they would like to have more information on. We will provide them with the information on the credit card as part of the conversation design and part of the information that's being provided. Once this information is provided in this way, we're actually providing templates from within the chat as well. We can surface that, and if they click on it, it would actually increase it in size and allow the client to actually see what they need to do. Now over here you've got the option, yes please, or I'm good. However, because of the artificial intelligence we use, you could ask any question you like. Can I use PayPal to verify myself? The artificial intelligence will pick up PayPal, will pick up the context of the sentence, and actually provide an appropriate response. In this case, it is not supported. If I ask, how about Visa? Can I use my Visa card? Again, the artificial intelligence will break down that question, understand the context, check if the Visa card is acceptable or not, and provide the appropriate answer. We're giving a number of examples here of the simple questions that are basically being done day by day and handled by humans. There is no reason why a virtual agent cannot do this in these days. So I've asked, can I play from my country? It's identified using the IP of the chat component that this individual is in Germany. Once that is confirmed, an appropriate response can be provided. Again, what we're doing there is we're using information that's available and we are augmenting it with the capabilities of the virtual agent in order to provide as human a conversation as possible. And that's the demonstration I have for you today.
Thanks, John. Okay, so JJ, we've seen the solution work and the engaging user experience that the player receives. But what we do know is that the iGaming industry is pretty tech savvy. And so there'll be, you'll be wondering at this point, what are the salient points for the more tech savvy of our customers? What are they looking out for?
Right, Van, technical audience, then let's unpack it. Three key principles I think we should speak about. The first one being natural language processing and natural language generation, which are such important buckets within artificial intelligence. And John gave us an inkling of it when you just had a look at the interface. Right, so the first concept in NLP and NLG which we need to unpack is contextual understanding. Therefore, a virtual agent which cannot simply read the content of that which is written or spoken, but can actually understand the context, which is often unwritten and unspoken. And we do that using very complex sentiment analysis algorithms and other mechanisms which give us a sense of what's going on in the player ecosystem at the moment that particular engagement occurs. The second area of NLP which we should unpack for this audience, Van, is multilinguality. Here we're not talking about translation, but we're talking about the native understanding of a particular language. We support up to 100 languages. Now what this means, Van, beyond the technical, is that there is a huge business advantage of helping operators go into new markets, which is so critical as businesses expand the geographies in which they participate. So we don't have to traditionally build teams, which takes time, with native language understanding in different parts of the world, but the virtual agent can immediately assist the landing into new territories by embedding all the knowledge, cultural and linguistic, necessary to serve that market. And the third element in NLP is this concept of continuous improvement, which is so dear to me and to the company's vision, which is we are constantly improving the language model which we use to understand, because people develop new methods of speaking. They develop new methods of language. And as language evolves, so does our language understanding model. But we also continuously improve the workflow, right? The conversational pathway which the player is taken to resolution, whether it is a transaction status or any other type of requirement of a player. But the third element, which really brings all continuous improvement together, is platform improvement. So every 2 to 3 weeks, we release upgrades to the platform, which makes it always more capable, always more up to date with the most recent AI innovations. And maybe as we talk about innovations, let's talk about infrastructure, right? This is a cloud offering. So gone are the days of large on-premise investments.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it also means scalability, because with a cloud offering, you scale for a peak where your game, if you're in the sports betting arena, you're obviously going to have huge peaks, which are going to occur around seasonal games, or other seasonality requirements in non-sports betting environments, right?
Definitely. We hear that so many times from our customers.
It's the reality that it's very hard to scale up a human operation to a peak which is 6x of your average or 7x your average, but it's very easy to scale a cloud operation elastically to allow for that type of demand. And likewise, shrink in a trough. Right? So what that also means to organizations which have a Microsoft environment, since the solution is built on that type of technology, is that we can even deploy to the operator's Microsoft tenant account, which is hugely relevant from a security containment perspective. But if you're not using Microsoft technology, well, that's fine too, because the service can be consumed as any other cloud solution can be consumed. And maybe I'll just end with the last unpacking of the concept of data and its openness. Vanessa, gone are the days of closed black box solutions where pushing data in or extracting data out is almost impossible. But this solution is open at birth, which basically means that you could integrate any third-party application in your back office, whether it is proprietary or off-the-shelf, directly into the solution. More so, any insights, interactions, or customer data that you've seen in John's presentation can be extracted out of our solution. So you have some customers which say, you've got a good dashboard, we're happy to use it, but you've got others which say, no, we've got an enterprise-wide BI, and any insights you generate need to be consolidated therein. And that's fine, because the open solution allows for exactly that, interoperability and easy data exchange. So with that, I think this is really a perfect method, Van. Let's just dig deeper, right? Let's go into the back office. Let's look at the solution. Let's look at what the reporting and dashboarding looks like. Let's give it to John.
Definitely. Everything that you're mentioning is referring so directly to that competitive edge that we started off this webinar with. So let's hand over back to John.
So we've mentioned artificial intelligence a number of times. Let's actually establish how artificial intelligence is being used and what the expected advantages of it are. So we use a specific part of artificial intelligence and AI, and that is actually the ability to understand. And we use natural language processing engines in order to improve and move close towards human-like understandings, so we can generate human-like conversations. This understanding is one of the major differentiators between what were the old-fashioned chatbots, which basically the standard answer seemed to be, I'm sorry, I did not understand that, can you please rephrase, to our virtual agents, whereby we can actually recognize well over 90% of what clients are actually asking us. And that is the huge advantage and the big step forward that we've made. Once you're able to understand in a conversation, then you're able to develop it and make sure that the virtual agent will provide the appropriate responses. So this allows us to understand the context well within the conversation. In adding on top of that, the fact that we have a very flexible engine to generate the conversations means that we have been able to develop conversations which are fluid and effective. The conversation design team are also specifically attributed to that. They actually work on conversations, they understand linguistics and how conversations should flow. And that means that the conversations are very effective and, as I mentioned before, human-like. The big goal here is to actually free up human resource for the more complex tasks. We can actually identify that well over 50% of the conversations which are hitting your human agents and your human resources are actually repeatable, and they are the ones which hit your organization the most. Okay, so the idea here is basically to automate as much as possible. Now, the results of this are basically, as I mentioned, recognition rates, the ability of the virtual agent to actually understand what the clients are asking, are well over the 90th percentile. And that means that the conversations remain fluid. The satisfaction rates, because of this and because of the integration capabilities that we provide, are also into the 80th percentile. When a virtual agent goes live, we would always expect that at least 30% of the end-to-end calls, end-to-end conversations are actually resolved by the virtual agent. That 30% we can then begin to increase over time as we begin to understand what the customers are asking, what kind of information they require, and we begin to integrate within your organization. We do approach this in an agile way. We like to go live with an initial virtual agent which will give us the information and the data needed in order to then expand its capabilities later. This actually creates a reduction in response rates over time, and obviously the time to resolve is also far shorter. We see high adoption, we see high reuse, and there is a strong value in actually resolving calls in this manner.
Great, thank you, John. So now that we've seen the back end of the solution as well, maybe two final questions for me, perhaps one for John and one for you. I'll start with the one from John. So John, I think it would be really interesting to know more about how the VA learns, so to speak, over time, and how we get from that initial 35 to 50% of conversations being handled at the outset to 90% recognition rates, and more end-to-end conversations being handled exclusively by the VA. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about that.
So yes, the objective of moving from that 30% up to close to that 50% and then beyond it is actually part of the analysis design that we have and the integration process that we would actually set up with our clients. We always want to hit that 30%. That 30% is there, and it is something natural that we can manage to achieve using the FAQ-based conversations. However, then data will begin to lead us to where we need to add in order to increase from that 30 to 40 to 50 and then over 50% over time. Now, I'm providing an example of a dashboard. Now, don't worry about the figures. These are just examples that we've put in order to provide an example dashboard. But these are the kind of figures that will help us begin to analyze the information that the virtual agent is generating. Now, this information goes two ways. It helps us in our analysis of the performance of the virtual agent and looks to increase. And it also can be used as a source of information for your organization and in order to analyze your clients' actual interactions with your organization. Now, this information is all yours. It is our job to make sure that we make it fully available to you in almost any format that you require. So we actually have an API endpoint that you can call, extract the information from the virtual agent, and actually bring it into your own dashboarding systems and your own BI tools. And that would come over in as a parameterized form. So if you want the last weeks of information, you just call it in that way. And that is a simple way of approaching it. However, also, of course, we will provide you with dashboards that provide the basic analysis of the virtual agent's performance. In this case, you're seeing the number of interactions being tracked. That is the interactions of clients with the chat component or with Facebook Messenger, etc., and the number of actual conversations being triggered as well. A conversation for us is when there is an end-to-end discussion between the client and the virtual agent. We're also tracking goals that we would agree with you in advance. As part of the design process, we would identify the goals that you want the virtual agent to actually hit. We will track those and provide the information behind it. We're always analyzing takeover analysis. When are the calls going back to a human agent, and when are they actually being handled by the virtual agent itself? So all these various elements are being analyzed, and you've got this dashboard in order to take a snapshot view of them. In each one of these areas, you've got that magnifying glass in the corner. If you click that, you will actually see the data behind it, and that will allow you to carry out further analysis on any of those areas.
Great, thank you. Okay, so in the final question, the second question is for you. So it's one that we get asked a lot, actually, by our customers, and it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so we talked about 35 to 50% of conversations being handled at the outset, and then obviously as time goes on, that number definitely increases. But maybe more importantly for some people, what about the conversations that are not handled by the VA end to end? What is the process? What does it look like?
This is such an excellent question, Vanessa, because it really goes to the heart of what the purpose of AI in business is. And the purpose is not to replace human beings, but it is to augment their capabilities, to allow humans to focus on the really tough, complex, business-centric bits, and allow AI to automate those parts which do not require human intervention. So now that we've set the vision, let's actually try to understand what happens to the questions which the virtual agent is not tasked to take on. Perhaps they are too complex or multifaceted. Well, built into the product is a very strong human handover algorithm. So this is a capability which is baked into the offering, which has a number of facets. So the first one is frustration detection. So we can understand that a player is frustrated because the virtual agent can't understand the complexity of the question posed. So the moment the frustration detection algorithm kicks in, it immediately hands over the conversation to a human agent. If a human agent isn't available, perhaps in a specific language or a specific time, then the product has the capability of very complex queuing, escalation, and prioritization methods. So in some implementations we create a ticket, in others we create an automatic VoIP callback scenario, or an email trigger, or other type of solutions to allow a handover to a human. If a human is available there and then, the virtual agent actually creates a summary of the case, passes it over to a human who takes over on the same channel the conversation with the player, and there is a seamless transition. And this seamless nature is so critical, Vanessa, right? Because we need to learn to live in an environment where AI and humans collaborate side by side. It's no surprise that Gartner argues that 85% of all player engagement by the end of this decade will be managed without human intervention.
That is such an interesting statistic.
Right? I mean, it gets mind-boggling because it shows a vision of the future in which humans need to understand what it means to work with automation. But automation and human handover capabilities are not only relevant in a complexity environment, which we just spoke about, but there might be other triggers. For example, VIP management. So many organizations have specific human-first rules for VIP management, and we respect that, right? Because the virtual agent learns all the business rules and environments that an operator has. As a result, the moment that a VIP enters the environment, whether it's a social media messaging platform or the web portal or other tools, there is this immediate handover to a VIP team to ensure that a rapport with a VIP manager is always maintained. But then there's also the RG angle, right?
I was going to mention that because that's exactly what
course.
I thought of when you said there's this seamless handover to a human agent. And I imagine that that's one of the occasions where operators would certainly want the personal touch, so to speak.
Right, and I think this brings it all together now, right, Vanessa? So taking back from John's presentation about natural language understanding, this is how RG is maintained, right? So as the virtual agent can cognitively understand the conversation, it is constantly looking out for trigger words, for sensitivities, which typically indicate a responsible gaming pathway, which needs to be triggered. Now, the moment that that is picked up, the virtual agent stops that conversation and runs a workflow, which the operator establishes based on their RG policies, to ensure that the management of that player is done with empathy. And empathy and humanity is such an important part of this conversation,
Definitely.
right? We often think of AI as being, cold and impersonal.
Robotic.
Robotic, right?
Robotic.
Robotic, and there's this Hollywood, if you wish, aura. But the truth is, if done correctly, now a solution does just that, right? It allows the treatment of the player with empathy, with care, with humanity. It's saying like, I see you. I understand the data context. I understand your needs. And I understand when I, as an AI tool, can serve you, or when my human colleague should serve you best. And this is really blending the best of both worlds, the human world and the technical one.
So am I correct in saying that the solution can be ring-fenced in such a way that it actually supports RG concerns, for instance?
Absolutely. I think that RG is just one of the scenarios which a business has to deal with. Likewise, AML, likewise, KYC, likewise, onboarding principles, likewise, support and service. So these are all operational layers within a gaming environment, and the virtual agent is built together with BMIT's industry knowledge to cater for all these layers, for all these scenarios, for all these workflows.
Thank you, Jeje, and thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. We will actually be reaching out to all of you to offer you a free AI readiness assessment. Meanwhile, if there were any questions that you haven't managed to ask or pop into the chat, we'll also be reaching out to you to respond to those individually. Thank you so much for your time.